Welcome to the Finest App podcast, a place where we celebrate the moments that define success. My guest today is Richard Oxley, the managing director of Becker UK. And it's a great story that I'm really looking forward to bring you. So Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the invite. Yeah.
And that's your first ever podcast as well.
First one, yeah. So a little bit nervous, obviously, but looking forward to it and looking forward to having a good chat today. So yeah.
Yeah, and I look forward to sharing your story because it's a really good and inspiring one. But before we dive into that, could you introduce yourself and Becker?
Yeah, so my name's Richard Oxley, I'm Managing Director of Becker UK. Been with the company for 5 years now, 4 years as the MD. Becker are basically a vacuum pump and compressor manufacturer. We are based in Germany, and as you imagine, as a German manufacturer, we really start out with high quality, reliable products at a fair price. What we really offer customers is peace of mind. Yeah, so if you put a Becker pump in your machine or on your production line, you know it's going to work, you know it's going to last a long time, and we've got a global network of subsidiaries there to really support you. So if we do have any issues, and you've got a machine that goes to China or wherever, we've got a guy out there to offer that local support.
And you guys are based in Yorkshire.
Yeah. So
UK.
made in Yorkshire, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So based in Hull.
Yeah.
So head office in Hull. We've also got a service centre in Kent, so we can support like the south of the UK as well. Another interesting thing, I think, as I'm an employee as well, is it's a family-owned company. So fourth generation. My boss is Mrs. Becker, and it's still within the family. And I think that's something I really admire about German industry, and I think in Britain we do as well. We admire about the Germans is they pass it on to the next generation. And that whole idea of having like a cultural thing that you want to pass something on for the future, it's ingrained in the way we work, like thinking about our environmental footprint, making sure we're reducing our environmental impact for ourselves and our customers. And also making those kind of relationships with our customers, always thinking about them as long-term relationships. And you can only build those relationships or built on trust. And by having that trust, by making sure you have a good quality product and having the service to kind of back it up.
But today we are actually here to talk about the story you get into Becker, because that's very interesting. And I think it's one of your finest moments, really. Because you actually took on this role, or the top role of the UK base, at the age of 29.
Yeah,
and it's quite a story, because you're not actually from Yorkshire, are you?
No, yeah. So I'm originally from a place called St Albans, which is just north of London. So yeah, kind of take you back to my kind of background and my experience. I went to university, did an automotive engineering degree, so quite a technical guy. And my first kind of career was in the compressor industry. And that was like a sales support role. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Love sales, love meeting people, that kind of mix between the technical and the people skills. Yeah. Really enjoyed that. And then I moved into vacuum, and that's kind of how the whole kind of Becker opportunity came around. I was at a show, just as an exhibition at the NEC, and these two guys are walking past my stand. Sometimes you're at a show and they're not going to come on your stand. They're looking at your product, and you think, I'm going to grab these guys.
If you're a good salesperson, that's what you're going to do.
Exactly. So I went over. I was like, I'm going to grab these guys. And turns out it was two gentlemen from Becker. One of them was the previous MD, and we had a really good chat about the market. And I was just interested about what was going on, and it's something I've always been really interested in. I know about my competitors. I know what's going on. I know all the people, and I really enjoy that part. Thought nothing more of it. It was a good exchange. Yeah. A couple of weeks later, the old MD rings me up and he says, "Look, I'm looking to retire. Would you be interested in applying for the role of Becker MD?" Yeah. And at the time I was 29.
Totally out of the blue, they called.
Yeah. Just kind of a bit take it back. So I followed the interview process, went over to Germany, met the CEO, and kind of the rest is history. Really got the job, and so look back now, it's the defining moment of my career so far, and a fantastic decision in there.
Why do you think they decided that you're the right fit for this role?
Well, they obviously saw something in me. You'd have to kind of ask them, I guess. But from my side, I think probably I had the market experience. Yeah, so I had the technical experience. I'm a technical guy. I like to think I'm quite good with people, but I didn't have any management experience.
So that was a bit of a gamble for them to take you on. So they literally had to have seen something in you. They say they're a very empathetic company. The people that hired you.
Yeah, so my manager's fantastic. I would,
Yeah.
really fantastic person to work for, and really believes in like putting people forward. I think they've done it in the past. I think so. The guy in Poland, from recollection, he was really young as well. I think he was in his late 20s, early 30s when he took over, and he did a fantastic job. So they'd had experience in the past of young people coming in and doing a good job. So yeah, from that side, I think it was a risk for them, and also at the time for me, it did feel like a risk. But I look back now and I think actually the decision was really, really easy. There was lots of things that kind of align. You know, sometimes in life, like stars align and it's all it works out perfectly for you. My partner, she's a psychologist in the prison service. And at the time, their kind of recruitment process is so long and you have to get all these DBS checks and all this kind of stuff done. So she got offered a job and it took 6 months for that process to happen, and she got offered a job in Nottingham, so it was in the north anyway. North of London. If anything north of Watford Gap is London, like that's north for London. At the time, then this whole opportunity with Becker came up, which was
so you looked at that and thought it's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. So we live in Lincoln now, so we just picked it on a map. What's commutable for both of us, and yeah, although it was a big leap in my career and I knew I didn't have that management experience, I just thought all these things are aligned. I've got to go for it. And it's always what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be an MD. I've always wanted to run my own company. So the risk seemed, although it was a big step up and there was lots of change in my life. We also had a young baby at the time, so that was all going on. It was when I look back now, I think it was mental. That we did all this stuff at the same time. But yeah, it turned out to be a fantastic decision.
I mean, it's shaped you, I think, as a leader as well. You just followed this opportunity, you took it, and figured the rest out later, I guess. That's how it worked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I look back now and I think in terms of what I was walking into as well as an organisation. So the previous MD had been there for 30 years, done a fantastic job, literally taking it from virtually nothing in the UK to a really successful, profitable business.
Because it's a multi-million-pound business, Becker. UK.
So I think when I joined, we were doing about 5.5 million with 24 people. This year we'll do hopefully 8.5 if we hit, if we do well in the second half of the year. With the kind of same number of people, so we're still 24 people. So I think it's a good turnover turnover to employee ratio, so it's been really, really, really good so far.
So what challenges have you faced during this transition into this leadership role at the relatively young age? What were the main challenges? Because you say you are a great sales guy, you're a personal guy, you're a technical guy, but you're stepping into this new role. And it's a challenge. So what was the most challenging for you at the time?
Well, in terms of particularly for being a young person, I would say I didn't have the experience. So I look back now and I say I came in and the business had stagnated. So in the 10 years before I joined, they basically had zero growth. I inherited a team of older salespeople who were coming to the end of their career. So I knew I had to replace the entire sales team within 3 to 4 years. And it was clear that something had to change. And I look back now, and the changes that we've made have obviously been very successful, and we've done it over 5 years. But because I was young, I questioned myself a lot, and I didn't have that belief because I didn't have the experience to say, right, no, I've come across that experience before. I've come across this situation. This is how you handle it. So I think I took a bit too long to make decisions. I always second guess myself, and I look back now, and I think in hindsight, I should have just gone with my gut. I think that's really the lesson to take from it. Is just go with your gut instinct. And your gut instinct's normally right, And if I'd have gone with my gut sooner, I think we would have made the progress in say 3 years instead of 5.
Quicker,
we got there in the end, and I think we're a fantastic organisation. We're not completely where I want to be yet, but we're moving in the right direction for sure.
So, any specific situations where that gut basically propelled you? Do you have any examples? That good feeling.
I don't know.
I should have listened to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just all sorts of mixed experiences in terms of pricing situations, even things like that. There's how you handle people as well. So I think one of the things about leadership, I think about it and say, leadership's all about language, right? And sometimes you say the wrong thing, and I've lost count of the amount of times I've come away from a conversation. I think, I just didn't quite word that how I wanted to word it, and I hope that person came away not taking that as a negative thing. And it doesn't always have to be when you're critical of a situation, it can be positive as well. So sometimes I think I really want to praise a member of staff, and they've done a fantastic job, and I thought, oh, that's amazing what they did, and I came away from the conversation, did they know that I wanted to praise them there? Because I really didn't word things. So yeah, I think in that situation you just got to go with what, you know, kind of natural way of working with people. And one thing I think I've really learned over the last 5 years is that everybody's different. Have you seen that thing where you put people into those kind of 4 personality categories?
Yeah.
And sometimes you do call it colours and things like that. We call it doer, actor, thinker, friend.
Okay, that's a simple one, way of looking at it.
Yeah, so I would say what I've learned is communicating with different people in your team. You have to know what kind of person they are, personality they are, and then adjust the way you like phrase and communicate with them. And I think that's something I definitely got wrong with at the beginning of my kind of management experience. Was I was constantly doing the same way of talking to different people. Yeah. And sometimes that doesn't work, you know. Okay,
so that's through process of like experience and interaction you've learned over time, and you picked it quite quickly. But you said you also took time to educate yourself. So if you didn't know something, you would go out there and seek answers, right? And
I think that's true of any leader. You know, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. I think if you're 55 and you've been managing director of a company for 30 years or something, it doesn't matter. You can always learn. There's always new things out there. I love that guy Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've followed him. Like, leadership guy, fantastic. Comes out with some real kind of gems of information. So yeah, I think you've got to constantly learn, and you shouldn't be afraid to also take accountability when you get things wrong. You know, so if you've made a mistake, and you know that happens all the time in business, if you get things wrong, you can always go back. Yeah. You know, I had used to work for a guy in my previous employer who gave me that really good like bit of information. It was like, don't worry about trying new things. Don't worry about trying completely new ways of running your business and completely new ideas, because if they fail, you just go to back how it was before. And if they go well, fantastic. Fantastic, you keep going forward. You just
have to keep trying until it actually works out.
Yeah.
So in terms of managing people, obviously you managed to grow this business with the same amount of people. So you must have done something pretty remarkable in terms of how you structured this team, or how you aligned people's individual goals with the business objectives. Is that how did you manage?
I don't know if I've done anything remarkable. I don't know about that, but I've kept it simple. So I think in terms of anything with a team, I kind of break it down into 4 areas. So one is like having clear strategy, you know, clear vision for the business and setting clear goals. At Becker, we use something called objectives and key results. Yes, OKRs is kind of like acronym, and that's a really good way of aligning your long-term strategy, if that's like a 5-10 year goal, to something more manageable into quarterly goals. Next thing is communicating that with the staff, and I think that's, for me, you could call it a weakness. I like to call it maybe a challenge.
Yeah. I remember, because you have mentioned that you struggled with you doing all these things in the background, but then to communicate the message, that's where it was breaking down. Yeah, and I think to be honest, it's still something I do today. Is I make this mistake of thinking everyone knows what's going on in my head, and I know it's really clear. You know, it's really clear that I know what I'm doing. I've got a really clear goal. I know where I'm going, but I don't keep communicating with the staff, and that's a good thing, is like keeping that communication constant. Next is, you know, rewarding that. So when you've got these goals, you communicate into the team, and then you reward them when they do a great job. And I think the final thing is also giving people the opportunity to grow. Yeah. And I think within a large organization, so if you've got 2,000 people in a big office building, it's very easy for people to see those opportunities. And one of the things I've struggled with at Becker is, although we're a large organization globally, we've probably got 1,000 employees. In the UK, we're only 24 people. So it's quite a flat organization. It's like, so you've got to make sure you're giving people the opportunity to develop, and that might not always be promotion. It's just got to be areas of development. Maybe the extra training or something where they can step up a particular project, for example. That kind of stuff, and project roles. And that's something we've talked a lot about at Becker, is having these kind of like international projects and trying to get people from around the world to work together as a team to create, you know, something particular, and that's kind of worked really well. But you also talked about about people who are in different stages in their life, so being able to manage that, what they want as a person, opposing to like when they're young or when they move on, you know, through their sort of cycle of life?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be careful if I say any particular names or something. Obviously, work with these people still, but it's just, take an example and say, if you've got somebody who's 25 years old, they can be really ambitious. They can be like someone who's like, I really want to do this. I want to take my career forward. I want to be in management. I want to go forward. So you create kind of a career plan for them. And then something happens in their life. They decide they want to have a family. They meet someone, they settle down, and they go, actually,
and you just slow down a bit.
It's not what I want now. What I want to maybe come in part-time or whatever. And you've always, the key thing is always communicating with your team and understanding what their personal career goals and their life goals are, And I've always had really clear goals in my life, do you know what I mean? And that's where I think I've succeeded and got into the position I have. So I think it's always important for people to kind of have that and communicate that with their manager. Just be honest with your manager. Go up to them and say, I want to, it could be a monetary thing. It could be like, I want to make this much money, or it could be something around your career-life balance.
And how can I achieve my goals within this work environment, and how can I contribute? Yeah, brilliant. So, I mean, you really had to believe in yourself to do what you did, meaning, taking on this top job, moving across the country. So how do you cultivate this belief in yourself? So in terms of like, if you was to give an advice to somebody who perhaps is presented an opportunity, but they just have that little nagging voice, oh, you're not good enough, like, but they actually are. How do you cultivate yourself, that strength to go for these opportunities?
Well, I think one thing about me, and anyone who knows me, I've never lacked confidence. I've always believed in myself, and I think you've got to believe in yourself. But for people who maybe struggle with that kind of thing, there's a really good guy I follow on YouTube. He's called Vin Gian. He's an Australian guy, and all he talks about is like building confidence, communicating well with people, giving presentations and things like that. So he's a really good guy to follow. So I'd recommend anyone follow him. And he had this great piece of advice for us all, just a clip on like a YouTube short or something like that, where he said, just remember, there's someone out there in the world who's far worse than you, who's doing the job that you dream of doing, making loads of money. And the only difference between you and them is they believe in themselves. So I just thought it was a really good piece of advice, give you a bit of a kick forward to push yourself.
Okay. So just basically educate yourself, find ways to expose yourself to opportunities, and if you fail, you fail. If you don't, you win.
Well, it's like but it's like this conversation we're having now. We spoke on the phone when you rang me and you said, "Oh, do you want to do a podcast?" You had that first initial feeling where you're just like, it's putting yourself outside the comfort zone, but you got to go like, no, come on, get through that. You can
do it.
And if you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning. You've always got to be. I have this thing where I say to my team, you've got to be on the edge. You've got to be on the edge of your competence, the edge of your knowledge, and the only way to kind of push yourself forward and develop your career and develop yourself as a person is to push yourself. And as you get more and more experience, your competence will grow. So where you were before, and it was at the edge of your competence, where you felt nervous, all of a sudden now that just becomes what you do every day.
It's just natural to you.
Exactly. And then I always think if you're not in that position, then it's kind of time to move on with your career. It's time to find the new challenge, because you've become too comfortable. But that's just me as a person. Like that. That's what I enjoy. Some people don't like that. I think
it resonates with me, and a lot of conversations I've had with people who they say the same thing. You always, because we are born and we learn things over time. We're not great at any, like, I mean, me personally, I came to this country 17 years ago, and my first job in a pizza shop, I'll be terrified to answer the phone to take a pizza order, and now like, look, I can have a conversation with you. The managing director of Becker UK, who, it's like, wow, you look back and you think how far I've come, but it's only this every single day you have to push a little bit further and do one next thing, so and in terms of we also spoke about in our previous chat about people and things you take inspiration from, and there's one cool thing you mentioned which nobody ever mentioned, the company.
Oh right, okay, yeah. So we were talking about this to say I love Lego.
Yes, Lego.
Yeah. So I've got a 5-year-old son. And it takes you back like to being a kid. So I'll spend like an hour with him, 2 hours on a Saturday putting together Lego. And I was thinking about them as a company when you asked about where'd you get. I just think it's fantastic that you've got something which is so simple, which you think would be really, really easy to copy. I know they're very litigious vicious and they go after you if you try to copy their bricks. But they've just got like this core product that hasn't changed for almost 100 years.
Yeah.
And the innovation actually comes around it. So they're still an innovative company. They do all this stuff with the apps, the movies, the brand deals that they've put in place.
But the core product is so very simple, isn't it?
Yeah, but the core product's simple. And if you walk down, so we're in Leeds today, if you walk down the street in Leeds with a Lego brick, you will never find anyone in the city of Leeds who doesn't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's just one of the most recognised brands. Iconic brand in the world. Does, I think, 3 billion turnover. I think it's just a fantastic company.
Yeah, so what's the lesson for us, you think, looking at that? Keeping things simple, staying true to your...
Yeah, I think keeping things simple, but also that you can kind of have a core product that you can last for a long time.
Yeah.
And if it's reliable and it gives people value, you don't have to always change it.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. It's about providing value and providing value to customers. And the value that Lego creates hasn't changed. It's an educational toy for children.
Yeah.
And the education part of building something and creating something and the imagination that's required for a 5-year-old to build, a Starship Trooper or whatever is the same.
Yes.
That's not going to change. That could be around forever.
So, and I think you also mentioned like a business person that you follow.
Yeah, I obviously follow loads of business people, love LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, well into that. And when you asked me about it, I thought about it. I think as a kind of young leader, I'm really inspired by Ben Francis at Gymshark. I think I'd heard it on a previous podcast.
Yes, that was,
but what I liked about Jim, and I think how it kind of correlates with my kind of experience, is he started that business and it very quickly became much larger, but at some point he realized that he wasn't the right man for the job and he didn't have the experience to take it to the next level. So he got an external CEO in. I think he was the commercial director of Reebok, and it got him in to kind of take it to the next level. And he worked in all these different areas of the business, and I think that shows a lot of kind of honesty and authenticity.
I think it's almost like the apprenticeship stage where you have to really learn about exactly what the job is, and then you can go on and improve it, but you have to have the basics. So it's an important stage, I think, in everybody's life. For you, probably it was that previous job where you was technical sales. Well, that was like an apprenticeship stage to get you to your next thing. So it's always something in your story that takes you to that next level.
Well, I think if you align it with my running Becker UK was a big step up for me, but it was only 24 people, 8 million turnover business. Like Gymshark's 700 million or something a bit different. So I don't think I could have gone from being a salesperson to being the CEO of Becker. I think that would have been too big of a jump, which is basically what Ben Francis would have had to do. So what I'm saying is he's kind of done what I've done, which is taken this middle step to do that. So in my future now, like I said, about setting goals and always wanting to do the next thing, that's what I want to do. I want to be a CEO. I want to have that international experience, going forward.
I think there's quite a lot that will be coming for you in the next few years. I think so, you're a very ambitious guy. So I really admire what you've achieved in those last 5 years, that you've stepped up, you took on the job, you took on the challenge, and that's very inspirational, I think, so congratulations on that, and I wish your career will just continue flourishing. You've got plenty time ahead of you to make those dreams come true, so wherever it takes you, I shall follow.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Really and thank you for having it was great to have you on this podcast, Richard. I hope you enjoyed the experience. And that's it from this episode of the Finest Star podcast. I hope you enjoy Richard's story and his growth over the years. Please like, subscribe and share, and check out our channel for many, many more amazing stories and inspirational leaders. So I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.